Tuesday night, and once again, we are back with another episode of Goal Horns and Fight Songs. Uh, this week, we have a couple of topics rather than just going through a school because the NCHC did announce their playoff format for once Arizona State joins the conference next year. So I think we're going to start with that. But I guess, first of all, how are you, Wes?
I'm good. I mean, we're about 38 days away from the hockey season starting. It's creeping up. The weather's getting a little cooler. We're getting closer. I think school's just started here this week, so it's almost time.
No, speak for yourself that the weather's getting cooler. I foolishly volunteered myself to work my brother's girlfriend's uncle's stand at the state fair because that's going on right now, and that's Labor Day. The high is 98, so we're gonna be approaching 100, and it's a barbecue joint. Now, yes, I am gonna be at the front selling the food, but the grills are right behind me. So Labor Day might be more labor than I really want to put in.
Gonna be a little spicy out there, huh? You might lose a few pounds there, pal.
I don't know if I can actually afford it, even though I've packed on a few the past couple of years. I don't know if I can afford it. I'll just make it up with the great barbecue that Charlie has going on there, and anyone from Minnesota that goes to the state fair, shameless plug, stop by RC's barbecue. He has his new food this year is Maui soda ribs, and it was announced prior to the fires in Maui and Lahaina, but he has friends there, and all those proceeds are going to be going, or not all of them, but at least a portion are going to be going to the relief funds, the people of Hawaii.
Cool beans. It's always good when you can find a way to help somebody out, even though it wasn't necessarily intentional that way. But no, it's a good cause for sure.
Anyone that happens to stumble across this and is going there Labor Day, feel free to come heckle me, do whatever, as long as you buy some food. I won't be upset
then. I haven't been to a state fair in forever. Plus, it's like the Michigan State Fairgrounds are in the weirdest spot. They're literally right outside Detroit.
Yeah, ours are in a suburb, and I've never been a state fair person, but I've gone more the last few years, just friends and other people wanting to go. I'm like, whatever. And I only planned on going once this year, but
I went as a kid.
When a friend needs help, you help them. That's what I'm doing on Labor Day.
Well, you enjoy that. I will not. I will be doing nothing on Labor Day.
You will be sitting in the air conditioning.
That's not necessarily true.
My ass off.
It depends on how hot it is, because that electric bill is getting a little steep, right? So we've been cutting the AC back a little bit here. Yeah, no, the NCHC likes to announce their news on Wednesdays, so we're usually about a week late on the big news. This year being that next year's playoffs will have a different feel to them, but I like what they did. All 9 teams are still going to make the playoffs. It's kind of similar, I guess, to what the NBA is doing with their play-in games. So 8 and 9 will face each other the Wednesday before playoffs start, or I guess the Wednesday before the playoff series, at the number 1 seed. The winner will stay and play, that number 1 seed for the 3-game set on the weekend, and number 9 goes home. So number 9 still with a chance. We could still see some magic happen. I like this format. It's not, everyone was trying to figure out how it would work. Was there going to be a bye for the first round? A bye didn't really solve anything, so I'm glad they didn't go that route. But there is still a little bit of an incentive, in my mind anyway, to really try and be that number 1 seed.
Yeah, I think being that number 1 seed, you're going in against a team that's already played one game, and you haven't had to play a game yet. And I like the way that they set it up as wherever that number 1 seed is, the 8 and 9, they play 2 days prior on that Wednesday. So then whoever wins, they don't have to travel. So say it was, um,
Yeah, they're not traveling twice to play a game or.
yeah, like, so say Denver's the 1 seed and Colorado College and Miami, they go, or Arizona State, whatever you want. They're the 8 and 9. Miami's the 8 seed. They go to Miami, they play one game there, they win, and then they have to travel halfway across the country to go play Denver 2 days later. That just didn't make sense. So I really like the way that they set it up where, okay, yeah, nobody's really going to have home ice advantage. But at the same time, we're not faulting the kids. Like, we're not hurting the kids, making them travel more.
Yeah.
That they're just there and they can stay. They focus on the one game and then, day to recover, day to practice, get back into it.
Yeah, but like I said, like I think it gives the number 1 seed enough of a incentive in that you get to see the two teams play before you play them, and so you get to watch that game, and you're having the normal in between amount of time. You get that full week off, but again, like I think it'll be interesting to see how they do the scheduling too, because there could be a chance that the number 1 seed has the last weekend of the year off potentially, with it being 9 teams. Like no matter what, there's going to be a NCHC team who's not playing a conference game when conference games start. So either it'll be really, I doubt that we're going to see that late in the season a non-conference game go, or even an exhibition. So potentially the number 1 seed, if they rotate, depending on how they rotate around, could have a quote unquote bye week before going into playoffs. 8 and 9 play each other, and that could potentially, that might hurt a number 1 seed. We've seen a lot of teams who sweep in the pro leagues. We see a lot of teams who sweep a series and they end up getting swept the next series, or they don't play as they might have had too much time off and they can't shake the rust off, or the legs get a little too tight. That could be something worth watching as the schedules come out and we see, and as the teams perform next year too.
I think because Arizona State was independent, I don't know. I think Augustana is joining the CCHA. Can't remember there's another school that's jumping to D1. Lindenwood, I don't know if they're
I believe they're independent.
If they're independent, I think that's the trouble with not having many independent schools, because if you have this odd number of teams, you can schedule an independent school that last weekend to make sure all 9 teams are playing. But they're already having their schedules built out and everything. So it will be interesting, because there could be that, like you said, there could be that rust, at least for the first game. And then that, who knows, it can make for an interesting series and have it go 3 games where the number 1 seed, they lose game 1, but then they can bounce back and show why they're the number 1 seed and win games 2 and 3, or they could go down. It That provides a little bit of intrigue in that.
So currently looks like there's 6 independents. Arizona State, who will no longer be independent next year. Long Island, Alaska Anchorage, Alaska Fairbanks, Lindenwood, and Stonehill.
Stonehill's the one that I was thinking. So I think until those remaining 5 teams find conferences, I think Arizona, well, that's going to be interesting because you don't know who's going to be the number one seed, but you kind of have those rivalries in place and those schools. I think you just have to schedule an independent for that last weekend for whoever the odd team out is.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what the schedules look like come the 2024-2025 season. We won't really know until then what it's going to look like, and we won't know until that last week whether or not, it could be the 8th seed that has a bye going into.
Mm-hmm.
They could be the 8th seed going into that last week, and the ninth seed pulls off a sweep or something and jumps them, and now they gotta still play in that playing game. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out with 9 teams playing in the season, and just what that means shake up wise for the standings going into the final weekends. Because we've seen even with 8 teams, a lot of times the playoff seeding and or the Penrose Championship comes down to that last weekend, and we don't really know a whole lot. I mean, sometimes we know who the 8th seed is or the 7th and 8th seed, and that's all we've got going into the last weekend. Anybody could jump from, what was it, I think last year with a couple weeks to go, 1 through 4 could have shaken out any number of ways the
And
last
then
2 years.
and then even 4 through 7 could have shaken out because North Dakota could have ended up as, or 5 through 7. Like North Dakota
Yeah,
could have ended up as the 5 seed,
which I think they
UMD
did.
as low as 7.
I think,
Like
yeah, I think North Dakota was able to jump Duluth last year and get that 5th seed,
no,
knocking
because no,
Duluth to
we were the
6th.
5th seed again because it was still St. Cloud, UMD as 4 or 5. It just wasn't as close as it was the year prior.
Oh yeah, because it was Omaha was the 3rd seed, and they got North Dakota in the first round. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all that still had to shake out. So it'll be interesting to see. It's worth keeping an eye on this kind of stuff as we get in and we watch how decisions are made. But I was just looking at, thinking about that just now. Like with 9 teams, somebody has to be sitting out during conference play every conference weekend. And potentially someone could be sitting out that final weekend of the regular season trying to figure out, just where they're going to end up, and could they be playing a play-in game, or are they sitting pretty enough to not have to worry about it and they have home ice? So home ice and that number 1 spot are going to be just as coveted as they ever were, if not maybe slightly more going into next season.
Mm-hmm. And last thing I'll say about that is I I really do like that 8-9 playoff or play-in game because both teams are going to want to be in that 3-game series, even if it is against the number 1 seed. So I think you are going to see some very hard hockey played, um, some really good games moving forward when the 8 and 9 seed teams play. Uh, it'll be entertaining to watch.
Oh,
That's for
100%.
sure.
All right. I'm listening.
You good over there?
No, I had to find my notes. Uh, Start us off. I'll be listening, but go ahead and start. Or if you had anything else that you wanted to talk about before we jump into UMD, go for it, because I got to find what I'm supposed to be talking about.
You are a disaster. Well, so I guess we'll hop off on talking about UMD, and to me, they are one one of the more intriguing teams this year, and one that not not just because they are my team, but I have a lot higher expectations for them than I did last year. Even though they were the 5th seed, they're returning so many players, and they only have 3 freshmen joining the, or well, four freshmen joining the team. Um, so my biggest question is, what kind of jump do we see this team make, especially with how many sophomores they have, even losing to, what kind of jump can they make from year one to year two. Because I think the leadership is a big part of it, but I do think that sophomore class is going to be huge in the direction that this team goes.
So I originally, because I redo my rankings every week as I learn more about the team that we're talking about. I did move Duluth up a skosh. I still have them in my bottom four. That could still change. But I completely forgot to write that team in there. But anyway, yeah, they do have a lot of guys returning, but they're still going to be a very young team. They have 9 sophomores in that sophomore class that you were just speaking of. One of them being the leading goal scorer from last year, Ben Steves. He's going to have to, kind of put up a similar performance to what he did last year. Can he do that again? It'll be interesting to see. We know for whatever reason, the jump from freshman to sophomore year is generally one that we can see some regression in. And to have that many sophomores could be an interesting season for Duluth. They're also returning all 3 of their goaltenders. From Zach Stacekall, who will be a senior this year, Matt Thiessen, who will be a grad student this year after transferring from Maine last season, so this is his second season with the team, and their third stringer, who is expected to potentially get a shot at the starting position because we know that they struggled a little bit last year in net.
Zach Sandy.
Yeah. Also, I mean, this was the lowest combined save percentage and the highest combined goals against average since the inaugural NCHC season, which saw Duluth finish 6th that year. They finished 5th the last 2 seasons in the NCHC. I really kind of have them in that same spot again, but I do look for them to be a little bit more improved. They really didn't lose a whole lot as far as transfers goes. They lost two people, but they brought 2 in. They bring in former Penn State captain Connor McMenamin, who had 24 goals, 42 assists in 129 games with the Nittany Lions, and Luke Bast, who stays in the conference, jumping over from North Dakota, who had 3 goals, 6 assists in 39 games, and is a defenseman. I think also they're getting a couple players back that they didn't really have a lot last year. Blake Biondi's coming back from surgery on both shoulders. I think he only played like 18 games last year. So he's basically a new guy coming back in. And they get Kyler Clevin, who missed the entire season last year. So they get some pieces back that helped them a couple years ago. Hopefully they can step in and fill some of those gaps. But again, but they are losing Will Francis, who we talked about last year, who's hoping that he can be back come January, maybe after, as he continues to battle cancer for the second time in his life. So they're in an interesting spot, and I hope that they don't try and put too much pressure on trying to, because we've heard some guys already come out and say they want to win for Will, they want to play for a national title for Will. Don't put additional pressure on yourself and then make that a point where you're thinking too much about that instead of playing the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as I was thinking about this, the goaltending definitely is going to, and we said this last year, it is going to be a question. Last year was not very good as far as goaltending goes, especially to the standards that we have had basically over the past decade with Hunter Shepard, Hunter Miska, and Kaz Kaskisuo. There is a level of excellence, and that dipped a lot last year. The problem, though, was we could have won more games but the offense wasn't necessarily there either. And UMD, we're not historically known as a high octane offense, but this was um, below expectations as well. The adding Bast from North Dakota, that will help solidify the blue line because he has experience in the conference. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
And
but I don't know. I mean, the North Dakota defense was awfully sus last year to the fact that
they were not good either.
every single defensive player from North Dakota left in one fashion or another. Like
But
they are completely rebuilding their blue line over there.
you also have to look how good Dashke was when he came to our team last year versus his team prior. So there is some hope with that. The one it was both in the Duluth News Tribune and then the Rink. The guy writes for both, and I can't remember his name right now, but it was taking a look at UMD's roster.
Is it Matt Hatton?
Matt something.
I think it's Hatton.
Yeah, and I forgot about this, which is kind of embarrassing as a Minnesotan, especially being from the north. But Aaron Pionk, one of the freshman defensemen, he was a forward in high school, and then he moved to defense in juniors. And last year, we didn't really have an offensive defenseman, which we had in the past, with especially most recently with Scotty Perunovich in winning the Hobie Baker Award. So I think adding that offense from the blue line that will help our roster and help the guys in front. Now I don't know who's going to be willing to stand in front, and I think that relies on more the like a Blake Biondi. He's a big kid. He needs to stand in front of the net, and that's where he'll get his goals is in close. If his shoulders don't both fall on a socket at the same time, um, and it's just a very interesting team to me as how things are going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, they have the potential to get back up there and compete for sure. But, I mean, like I said, I don't have a lot of high hopes. I did move them up a little bit in my rankings here as I've continued to change them and work with them. A couple other notable things. This will be Sandlin's 24th season at the helm of Minnesota Duluth. I think he is by far and away the longest tenured head coach of the NCHC. Um, Being, I think, the only one left from that inaugural season. Now, Firschweiler was with Western as an assistant when the NCHC first kicked off, but he's since left and come back and has taken over as the head coach. This will be his third season there. We know it's Bergeron's fifth season with Miami, Mayot's third season with Colorado. I think Nebraska Omaha's coaches in his, this will be his third season. Carl out in Denver, it might be his fourth or fifth. I think we talked about it when we did the Denver episode.
I think fifth.
I think fifth too. And then St. Cloud might be another long one, but I don't remember.
No, because Motzko.
Oh yeah, Motzko was.
I think Brad Berry in North Dakota might be the second longest tenured coach in the NCHC.
Nah, he's only at like 5 or 6. I think this would be like maybe this is season 7 for him.
I think 7. But Motzko left only about 4 or 5 years ago from St. Cloud.
This is what we do here. Yeah. Oh, they don't list the stupid coach on the roster like every other school, you jackwagons. Oh, there he is. Brett Larson is going to do. This will be his 6th season. Larson's 6th season. So it's between Larson and Barry for longest tenured head coach. For second in the longest tenured head coach. But I mean, Sandlin's by far and away the longest tenured and I think the most successful at this point. North Dakota or Denver has 2 national championships, one with Carl, one with him as an assistant. North Dakota has one.
Oh yeah, Carl.
North Dakota has 1 title. Duluth has 2. What could have been 3. So I mean, there's
and Sandlin has 3 himself, like regardless of conference.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like these positions are ones that, if they're available, are going to be kind of the high interest positions of college hockey at some point. I mean, they kind of have to be with the way the conference is going. And if you want to show that you're a great coach at the college level, you got to coach an NCHC team to do what it does, or what we've seen from the conference. So I mean, I think it's all, and it's putting coaches in the NHL too. And Sandlin may not be one of those guys who wants to make that jump, but we've seen successful coaches. The coach from Denver before Carl, I think, is the Boston head coach who made them like the most successful regular season team in NHL history. Hextall went to the playoffs this year with a second-year Seattle team franchise. So I mean, they're successful at the college level, and we're starting to see them be successful in the NHL. And it could be, I mean, Jeff Blashill coached at Western the year before, or 2 years before it was the NCHC, and he made the jump to pro hockey. Not as successfully as some of the others, but he made the jump up there.
And Sandy, he has been approached. He was approached, I think, 2 years ago about the Ducks job, the Ducks head coaching job, and he said no. He definitely is a coach that could coach in the NHL, but every interview that I've heard and everything that I can gather from him, he doesn't want to leave UMD, and UMD doesn't want him to leave. They don't want him to walk. So I think he's in it for the long haul, and he's kind of like, you know what, I could go do this, but I'm having the time of my life coaching these kids and helping them develop. I'm just gonna stay here. I've been here long enough. It doesn't make sense to jump up. Yes, I think he could, but I don't think he will, because he definitely has had offers.
Now, that being said, at what point does he get into a situation like we were kind of discussing with Bergeron, where, I mean, he's been at the bottom of the standings for the first 4 years of his tenure, but I don't think we're necessarily seeing the success that many may want from Minnesota Duluth. At some point, does that become a question of, do we move on from Sandlin? Do we let him stick it out? Are we okay with a mediocre regular season, knowing that we could potentially make a run in the playoffs and into the NCAA tournament?
I don't think he's.
I mean, he may not be close yet, just because it's only been 2 years with 5th place finishes. But I do feel like Denver has, or North Dakota, damn it, Minnesota Duluth has been on a little bit of a stagnation and finding themselves in that lower 4, mid 4, bottom half of the conference the last few years.
I think at least the way that I look at it is, yeah, regular season trophies are great. Yeah, it's good to be a top 4 seed. But if you can make the tournament and make a run in the tournament, like whether, winning the conference tournament or making a run in the NCAA tournament, that's more important, because you know, I I watch basically every single sport, and Michigan State basketball and Tom Izzo, he schedules the toughest non-conference schedule that he can, so he can have his team prepared for the postseason and making runs in the NCAA tournament. And yeah, your record's not going to look great. You might not finish with the number one seed in the Big Ten. UMD might not finish with the number one seed in the NCHC. But I don't give a rip about the regular season if you can produce in the playoffs. And this was the first year since I think it was 2016 that article said that they've missed the NCAA tournament. So that's 7 years of at least getting in, if not winning a game or two, and then you have two national championships in there. For me, I really don't give a rat's ass about the regular season unless you're finishing last a couple years in a row. If you're finishing in the middle of the pack, but you can actually prove that you can do something in the postseason, as a Minnesota sports fan, that means a hell of a lot more than the regular season, because you look at what the Vikings did last year. Oh, sweet. We were 13-4 and we got bounced in the first round. I just got a shirt that said first round exit. Yeah. Like, I don't think the two ways for him to be out are him deciding to step away, or he has about 3 years finishing now 8th or 9th. I would have said 7th or 8th. And understood, and I mean, I'm also speaking for myself. I knew St. Cloud was the better team. If we were to beat them, that would have been pretty spectacular last year. But, you know, they were the 5th seed 2 years ago, but it was a point differential that came down to a shootout. They could have been top 4. They could have even been 3. It was so close. So it's not like it's not like everything is such a separation gap right now. Last year was the first example of it, but it was such a young team that we had going in. So I think it's way too early to even be. Come on, old man. You can figure it out.
I can't. No. Yeah, I mean, I think he's still got quite a bit of leash on him just because he has been so successful. I was just wondering if, at what point. I don't know that anybody really wants mediocrity, even if. But that's the thing about college, a couple of the college sports, you can sneak in. What is it? We figured out that you technically only have to win 8 games and you can be a national champion.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And, yeah, I mean, it's. The other thing is, like we talk about, I don't consider it mediocrity if you're finishing in the middle of the pack in this conference. We always talk about how good this conference is and how tough it is to win in this conference. The Miami's the only one that really bugs me, because that's why I'm happy Person is in North Dakota, because it seemed like we could never beat him. But I don't think finishing in the middle of the pack in this conference is mediocre. I still think you're a damn good hockey team compared to the rest of the country. It's just mediocre with this conference. But at least we didn't drop from, co-champions to the 6th seed like North Dakota did.
You're not wrong.
And we only lost 2 players.
I guess maybe the importance. I put a lot of importance on what you do in your conference, because those are the teams you see the most. Those are the teams you play the most. That's really the majority of your season, and if you're not competing, but it's hard to say that you're not competing in the NCHC when half the conference goes to the NCAA tournament most years. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I think they did finish slightly below 500 last year. Um,
Yeah, we were.
it was not a great year for the Bulldogs, and I just don't want them to necessarily do that again because I think
Yeah,
that
it was 16, 20, and 1.
and
But
10 and 14 in the conference.
I also think it's very premature to bring this up because going into last season, we all knew what it was going to be. Like it was, maybe we're pleasantly surprised, but we knew it was a rebuilding year. There were, you don't know what you're going to get, but I didn't have high hopes for this team.
Yeah.
I just didn't. And so that's why having the 4 freshmen come in, but the rest of the team come back for the most part, I think that's a good building block to moving up. And yeah, I want that regular season trophy, but I I think it's at least 4 to 5 years out before Sandlin even would be considered on the hot seat for anything.
Well, good. No, I think he's a great coach. I think he does a great job with his players. Um, he's he's shown that he's a successful guy. He's gotten guys to the NHL. He's really done everything you want a coach to do aside from win the Penrose. But I mean, what? Only 3 teams have won the Penrose so far. I think more
Yeah,
have
and
won the Frozen Face-Off than won the regular season. So,
like I said, I'd rather be raising that trophy at the end of the year than the Penrose.
I mean,
Nice,
even
nice little notch in your cap, but
well, even in
yeah.
the NHL, we do see that the President's Trophy winner does not always equate to the Stanley Cup trophy. So,
Boston.
yeah, the Red Wings have done it a couple times. I mean, I think it's more often than not that the President's Trophy winner and the Stanley Cup champion are not the same team. So, all right, let's move on to looking at the at least the non-conference portion of the Duluth schedule, and then we'll get out of here for the night. A little bit of an interesting schedule. You guys got some one-offs in there. Honestly, it feels like a pretty well balanced schedule. You guys got a tournament appearance over the holidays. You have your standard 4 games with St. Cloud. Enjoy person for you know 8 games in the next 2 years. Um, I think is he a junior this year? Or is he a senior this year?
Well,
We'll figure it
well,
out when
no.
we get there.
I,
But
I hope.
but
Well,
he'll.
either way, he could probably come back as a grad student. So
That's
either
true.
way, you're probably not wrong.
But yeah, you'll see him 4 times this year, and then if he's still around next year, you'll see him 4 times next year with the new scheduling in St. Cloud and North Dakota being the 2 teams you see for 2 series. Uh, you do start out the series or the season at home with a regular game, not an exhibition,
Mm-hmm.
playing former WCHA opponent in Michigan Tech.
Yes,
Uh,
and they did finish second in the CCHA last year. I believe when I looked it up earlier, only 2 points behind Mankato.
they were a solid team. I believe I've seen that they have their starting goaltender coming back, who was up for quite a few awards last year. Was a really good goaltender, except for maybe when he played Western in the GLI. But nobody was touching Western in the GLI last year.
No.
You're sticking with the Michigan-based teams. The next weekend, welcoming in Northern Michigan, team that I believe has struggled a little bit here lately. They have had some upsets. You guys are really taking the CCHA on this year.
Yeah, Northern Michigan, they finished fourth, I believe, in the conference last year. Um, and I think there's a little bit of, at least on the coaching side, some rivalry because Grant Platoni, who played for the Gophers back in the WCHA days, has been their head coach. So I think he has a little motivation to just stick it to the the little brother of the Gophers um, coming in, and they, I think it was 2 years ago, Northern Michigan pushed Mankato to overtime, and I think it was that weird game where they ended the game and then they had to come back.
No, that was Bemidji, wasn't it?
Was it Bemidji? Might have been
Pretty
Bemidji.
sure it was Bemidji.
Yeah, either way, I know they had a close series in the semifinals.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think Northern played Mankato in the semis and played them pretty close and tough.
I
But
think it
I
was a
believe,
one goal deal.
but I believe it was Bemidji and Minnesota State in the CCHA finals that first season. That were full of silliness and controversy.
The Zamboni driver was crying, like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to drive this through the boards. But while you're looking that up, speaking of Bemidji,
You guys have a home and home with them again. You guys like to do that home and home with Bemidji. Didn't you do that last year too?
yes, we did. And I didn't necessarily see officially it went down as a 1-1 tie. And if I remember correctly, because I didn't look at it as closely as I should have, but if I remember correctly, we lost in the shootout to them. But then we did win the second game. And I think it's more of a northern Minnesota thing. A lot of people either go to UMD or Bemidji from northern Minnesota, especially International Falls has a place or a pipeline to Bemidji. So that'll be an interesting series, just with the kind of, I guess, half split, if you want to call it that, with them last year.
So it was Bemidji State and Minnesota State in the finals that year with the silly overtimeness, and it was Minnesota State and Northern Michigan in the semis, but Minnesota State kind of laid a whooping on them 8-1.
Oh, was it 8?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my memory's trash. Um,
Mine is great. Steel Trap.
So after Bemidji, then we have another. I think it was one of those 2-year contracts that you play a home series 1 year and a home series or an away series the next year with Cornell, and so the Bulldogs go to Ithaca, and this was a series that we swept last year at Amsoil Arena. Uh, I'm hoping for how not great our team was last year. I'm hoping for the same result, but you never know. First, really true road game because Bemidji's only a couple hours away from Duluth. So first real true road trip for the team. We'll we'll see what happens with that. Of course, won't be able to watch it, but probably be able to listen to it online just because it is not a home series for an NCHC team.
Yeah. Then you have another home and home, this time with Minnesota, taking on the big school that you're associated with. It'll be interesting to see if Minnesota is going to be as good of a team as they were last year. They did lose, was it Cooley to the NHL? He signed after saying he was coming back. He signed with Arizona. They do still have their other player who was up for the Hobie Baker alongside him, I believe. If not, it's going to be a new Minnesota team with some interesting potential. The game between Minnesota, was it Minnesota and it was Minnesota and St. Cloud last year, were incredible games. It was an incredible fun series.
Yeah, the last 2 years that they've had.
That one I thought could have been potentially a setup for what could have been a national title game had the NCHC gotten their shit together in the national tournament. It was not the case though, and Quinnipiac ends up being the team to take out Minnesota in the Frozen Four finals, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There was Nyes. He also left for the NHL, and then Brock Faber was part of that team as well, who ended up playing in the the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Wild. So the Gophers, they lost a bunch of guys, and I was thinking about this one today too, because I think the Gophers are going to have a different looking team than they did the last 2 years, basically.
Well, Nice
Uh,
played in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year too, didn't he, with Toronto?
yeah, and that
Yeah.
that's why
Okay.
I'm saying, like, he went in. Cooley was the one that
That's right. Cooley was the
um
lone coming back. So
yeah, the coming back, and then Arizona was like,
you
well, we have
so you can
seven
still
seven figures.
we'll pay you, and you can still play half of your games in a college arena. It's like the best of both
Exactly.
worlds.
Exactly.
I
So
mean,
they lost.
but with NIL deals, he might have made more staying at Minnesota and played in slightly smaller, if not maybe even possibly some bigger arenas. At least his home games would have been in a bigger arena.
Oh yeah, by at least 3 times.
But all right,
Uh,
that's enough making fun of the Coyotes. They do that enough themselves.
but yeah, I think that series is gonna be interesting, especially um, being in the Twin Cities area. I'm gonna kind of pay attention to what the Gophers do, because it's hard not to. They talk about them a lot down here, but I think it's gonna be a very different team. So I think that should be a close series. Unfortunately, is opening Deer weekend. Otherwise, I was going to try to go to at least one of those games, but I will be sitting in a deer stand, or at least driving north. Um,
Then you open NCHC play with North Dakota.
mm-hmm.
Those are home games. Um, Holiday weekend or during the holiday break, December 28th and 29th, you have the Quick Trip Holiday Face Off. I do not know who the other two teams are, but you will be playing.
Wisconsin and Air Force.
Oh, so you'll take on the winner of Wisconsin or loser of Wisconsin or Air Force, depending on what you do against Northeastern. Uh, we saw Northeastern last year. They'll be without goaltender Devin Levi, who took his talents to the NHL and performed admirably with the Buffalo Sabres last year. Um, Western has a winning record over Northeastern in the last couple years, getting 2 wins over Levi. Western also takes Sam Coangelo, who was on the show earlier this summer from Northeastern in the transfer portal. So a little bit of a different Northeastern team that you'll get to play, but I think a very competitive one all the same. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, those weekend or those tournament holiday tournaments are fun to go to. I've been to the GLI twice, and I went to the Ice Vegas Invitational when they were doing that. I don't think they're doing that anymore, which kind of sucks because that was a fun experience and should definitely come back if it doesn't, or if they're not doing it, they should restart it because it was a great time and an awesome experience for the players to get a chance to go out and play at T-Mobile Arena and experience Vegas for a couple days. And then you've got an exhibition game with St. Thomas, Colorado College to restart the NCHC schedule, and only one game against Western Michigan, or 2 games against Western Michigan this year.
Yeah, thank God. I just want to go back to that tournament. I think Air Force is going to be Air Force. They're um,
They're sneaky, man.
they are sneaky because they are so well conditioned. Uh, I think kind of with any sport and the military academies,
So not
you
only are they military conditioned, but they also play in Colorado Springs. They
yeah,
play at
they're altitude conditioned,
altitude. Yeah.
but you may not have the top tier talent, but you have the character of the student athletes that are willing to serve our country, and they have that dedication and they're that never give up attitude. Um, Wisconsin, well, that's basically Mankato State East because of Mike Hastings going to Wisconsin and taking the whole damn team with him, basically.
It'll be
Uh,
interesting to see how Wisconsin does this year. Like having that fact, he did take a lot from Minnesota State. And I guess hockey's a little bit easier to transition from conference to conference, unlike football. Like
mhm.
you're not gonna get the same amount of production if, I don't know, say you go to a Big Ten team and take half of the MAC players that you had recruited at your previous university.
Hey,
You
hey,
may
hey,
you may
hey,
not have the
hey.
same level of success. I mean, who could I be talking about? That
Hey,
uh,
they were coach of the year.
but you may not have the same level of success at your new school slash conference as you did at a previous one. But with college hockey, I think everyone's kind of closer to being on tier with each other. One, the fact that there's only 60 some programs, so your talent pool is already more evenly distributed across the conferences and teams. Two, the non-conference schedule is so heavily used throughout the season that you're competing against the Big Ten, the NCHC, Hockey East, the AC,
Atlantic Hockey
Atlantic. Yeah.
and ECAC. I,
Uh,
I think with Wisconsin and Hastings bringing over so many guys from Mankato, he pretty much is going to just implement that same system. And it has been successful throughout college hockey because you look at the runs that they've had in the NCAA tournament. It's not just like, oh, hey, we won our conference tournament and then we're going to get blown out in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
yeah,
They're
no,
competitive. They
was it
win.
2 years ago they won like 35 straight games going to the national title game before losing to Denver.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
mean,
it's,
back to
I,
back
I
conference
think
championships.
the scariest team in that quick trip holiday face off to me, I think, is Wisconsin, just because with how many Mankato players are going to be there and Mike Hastings implementing his system, a lot of the guys know each other. And then I think, at least for me, if I was playing, you have a coach with that pedigree. I'm going to buy into a system because this dude knows how to win. I'm going to follow what you're going to do. So I expect them to be Air Force. I I think we'll beat Northeastern. I don't know what Northeastern has, and so I think it's going to be a Bulldog Badger championship in that one, and then yeah, St. Thomas that exhibition. We played an exhibition against them last year, and my parents had wanted to go to that because it was over Christmas. I might go to the Milwaukee tournament. Actually, I'm thinking about it because it's Christmas break, but my parents had wanted to go to the exhibition last year against St. Thomas, and I told them, let's just wait a couple of weeks and then we'll go watch Western play because Western's a much better hockey team.
Yeah, those were two solid games. I was in the delivery room for the Saturday game.
Yeah, the one that I was at, because we were talking about it as you're waiting for
Reagan to make her appearance in the world. And then the Western Michigan series will be here January 19th and 20th. I only mentioned that because we both represent those teams. So, honestly, it feels like a pretty balanced schedule for the first part of the season here. Your non-conference schedule. You got the big team in Minnesota, the runner-up last year in the national title game. You've got Cornell, who you swept last year, Bemidji, who you've had a pretty good run with in the past, Michigan Tech, who you've had a history with. I have UMD being 6-4 through the first game with North Dakota. They gave you a win over Michigan Tech, a split with Northern, a split with Bemidji, each team taking the home game there. Sweeping Cornell, unfortunately being swept by Minnesota, and taking game one against North Dakota.
I can see that. I don't really have too much argument other than
I could also see him being 7-3, sweeping Bemidji.
Yeah, that's the one that I would say sweeping Bemidji versus a split. That's the one that I could see. It's tough to tell right now, especially when we don't know what the Gophers have. That I think that remains the biggest question mark in my mind. Yeah, I do think we're gonna beat North Dakota in the first game, especially because it's at home and they're still probably going to have their heads up their asses trying to figure out what's going on.
And especially if you get swept by Minnesota, you're going to want to prove that you're a better team than that and start the NCHC season off with on the right foot.
So yeah, that Gophers home and home, that's the most intriguing. And I think as we get more into the season after the first couple weeks, because I'm sure I'll be able to see some Gopher games down here. I'll know more what they look like and how they operate versus what the Bulldogs look like and how they're operating.
Well, I'm learning everything. Oh, please, God, for the love of Christmas. I have broken everything. Nope. All right. That's there now. That's where that lives. Any other fun stuff to talk about Minnesota Duluth wise? Because we are at our hour mark, including the old intro song.
I don't think I have anything else exciting about the Bulldogs. Not until the season starts.
Oh, now where'd it go? There we go.
Dear God.
Don't worry about anything going on over here, okay? Until you decide that you want to do the back end stuff, you leave me alone, sir.
I will not. That's my job, is to criticize you.
We are again 38-ish days, 39 days, 38 and some hours away from the start of college hockey. We have officially hit the halfway point of the old roster peak schedule looky-loo thing that we do here before the season. Yep, those were all words that I just said.
Just so you know, according to UMD's website for our first game, 38 days, 22 hours, and 33 seconds.
Yeah, see, that's what I said.
Yeah, you also said looky Lou.
Yeah, I did. And then I rhymed it with that's what we do. So suck on that. Next week, it'll be the Mavericks of Nebraska Omaha that we look at. That sounds like it's going to be as riveting as the Miami one was.
I can't wait.
Then we got North Dakota, St. Cloud, and we wrap it up with the Broncos of Western Michigan on September 26th. And then the following week, we'll go over our preseason rankings that we may or may not have been fanoodling these last 4 weeks, and we'll continue to fanoodle the next 4 weeks. 8 weeks of fanoodling. I just like saying that because it's fun.
And you know, I'm just hating it inside.
You hate a lot of things. Like that there's only, you gotta do the YouTubey things. Hit like, subscribe, share with your friends if you feel like you should. Whatever. The Gmail just went by. It's there. It's goalhornsandfightsongs@gmail.com. All one big long word. No spaces, no takeouts, no letters missing. The whole thing. The Twitter/X handle is Goalhorns and Fight Songs without O's, I believe. Except in goal. I believe there's an O in goal. Oh, here it comes. It's scrolling by right now. Yep, there's the O in goal. No O in horn. No and no O in song. So, yep, there it is. If you want to get a hold of us on the Twitter/the X, that's where it is. We're on there. I do check comments on the YouTubies the day after it's posted, or if someone were to comment tonight, I would probably see it tonight before I go to bed. I think that's it. Our personal Twitter handles have been on the page the whole time, so you could look at those too. I don't know where my parenthesis went, but now it's back. That's cool. So those are there. Other than that, I believe we're down to one final thing, unless Mike has something.
Nope, I got nothing. Just go for it.
All right, well then there's only one thing left to say. Puckside.net, good things happen like Goalhorns and Fight Songs. Until the next episode, we're out of here. Have a good one. Bye-bye.